Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Malibu Dallas Show. We have a fantastic show for you today. We are dealing with not necessarily CPS corruption today, but we're absolutely dealing with and talking about courtroom corruption, government corruption, Department of Justice corruption, corruption inside of private prisons. So we're absolutely still on track to expose corruption and talk about what's going on inside of these systems that are absolutely unconstitutional and violating everybody's constitutional rights at every single point inside of a trial or a court case that you can possibly imagine. So if this interests you, stick around. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Thank you for joining me here on the Malibu Dallas Show. We have a special guest with us today out of Oregon, and she is going to be talking about a specific case that she has along with her husband that they are deeply involved with inside of mass corruption, inside of private prisons, local courthouse, federal government, you name it. We're going to be talking about it all. If you're inside of any type of legal system, and you are trying to figure out what's the best avenue to go down, how to eliminate the corruption, how to expose the corruption, what are you supposed to be doing inside of your own case to get the courts to listen? These are all very valid questions that everybody, every parent, everybody who's dealing with not just a legal, criminal case, but maybe a CPS case, or even as low as a traffic court case, right? We're seeing massive amounts of corruption all over the country in every single level of the legal system. And thank God for a lot of upcoming events, because we're starting to see a lot of this stuff being exposed in every single state, every single jurisdiction. We actually just had the Department of Justice come out with an official letter saying that they will no longer protect and represent administrative judges because they're essentially unconstitutional, right? There's a lot of constitutional issues that are being raised in regards to a lot of these processes. And these judges, they're going to find themselves in a little bit of hot water, so much to where they're not going to be able to stand the heat. If you understand what I'm talking about. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And that's exactly what we're doing, is we're starting to expose massive amounts of corruption, not just on TikTok, on Instagram, but we have podcasts now that are just going full blast on exposing the corruption. It's not just my channel. It's just a ton of channels that are relentlessly exposing corrupt judges, corrupt lawyers, corrupt CPS agents, corrupt courtroom procedures. And it's going all the way up into the Federal Court of Appeals. And my next guest is going to be talking about that. She's been a longtime friend, an amazing supporter. I've helped her out on her case quite a bit, and it's been troubling, to say the least, because her case has been extending for years, a couple of years. And if you knew the troubles that this family has gone through, her child is even going through her own CPS case, and it's it's just like you peel back an onion. You peel one level of the onion back, and you get another fucking corrupt system dealing with another issue in a court, and it's all because of profit. Every single level of corruption is just for profit, and they don't care what they're doing to the American people. They don't care what they're doing to children. They don't care what they're doing to destroy the family unit. As long as they're getting their money, they don't care. But I digress. And with that being said, I'm going to introduce you to my wonderful friend. She's a wonderful friend. We're on the phone all the time talking about the case. Her name's Jamie Fox, and I'm going to introduce you. Say hello, Jamie.
Hi.
How you doing, girl?
Well, just as good as could be. Considering.
Right. Considering all the crap that you've been dealing with for like literally the last couple of years that I've known you, it's just been a relentless onslaught of just BS.
Never ends. You think so it's going to.
Right, exactly. So what can you tell us about what's going on with your case? I mean, I know we got several cases to talk about.
Well, do you want me to start from the end or where we are now?
Give us a little backstory into, I mean, not the whole thing, but a little bit of backstory leading into where you are right now.
Well, there's a few roads that led us down this path. One would be that my daughter is married to a man who she was putting a restraining order against him for being, threatening and scared her and the children, threatened to kill her and the children. So she put a restraining order on him. She left him. She was staying with us in Oregon. And he started coming to our house and, just constantly just putting GPS trackers on her car and threatening her, putting her, when she did have her own house, he was getting in her attic. He was causing her just a lot of hardship and the children fear. And not only them, but then we worry about what he's going to do to our home because he was coming to our property. And stuff had just gotten out of control. She had a restraining order against him this entire time, but it didn't seem to stop him. And we didn't understand that, because all these police forces it went from Washington State is where this started. That's where they had previously resided together, but she had left and moved with us to Oregon. So anyways, during this period of time, he didn't want the children. He didn't want her to leave is what it came down to. But myself and my husband, my husband had a previous case in Oregon that he was railroaded in. And we were actually just fighting to get that dismissed and remove that. And we went down to Arizona. I had previously been down there. We have grandkids down there. And I had wrecked my vehicle. So I went down to Arizona for another trip back there because I had wrecked my car previously there.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take it back to where the warranty is. So they say. So I drove all the way back to Arizona. We were in a motorhome. And we were there 5 days. We had got pulled over by the local police department, Mesa, Arizona. Actually, it was not Mesa. It was that little town we were in. I don't remember the name of it. But anyways, guns blazing, telling us that our car had come up stolen. Well, I had the title right in my purse. Here's the title.
Right.
So when I brought the title out, well, then that wasn't why they pulled us over. They pulled us over to say that we were on a list with our car on a missing children's list for nationwide missing children. We don't have children. They're all grown.
Right. They're all grown, moved out of the house.
They grew up and moved out. Well, guess what? It was for my daughter's kids. Her husband called and put my car on a list. Okay, so that being said, some other things.
You think they would actually do a little bit of investigation on the backstory of how in the world does your daughter's ex call in and put your car on how does that even correlate? Like, are they not smart enough to figure that out?
Well, here, let me give you a little insight. First of all, he's a paid informant. We found out later. He's on paper. We read the papers where he got in trouble with some other people. He got out. Nobody else did. And he seems to have this list of criminal history for a long time. Many, many different arrests. And he's really never done any time. And he continually gets out.
If he's constantly being arrested, then I mean, where's his credibility at this point?
None. He has none. So, but he was friends with an officer, one of his best friends, and their wife split up, and that wife went to go date this cop. And then Ricky's husband became friends with that cop. Well, guess what? They were texting back and forth, and he got that cop on board to come after Ricky. So they came after us. They didn't arrest us the first time in Arizona. We left the state of Arizona. I was going to leave my car there because it had to be fixed. But our adjuster had all of a sudden got called out to Florida for a bunch of chaos going on there with the weather. And then we thought that was weird. But anyways, we went to California on the way back to Oregon because it was Tim's birthday. And we stayed there for 7 days. And then our adjuster calls back and says, "Oh, I'm on my way back from Florida. You have to go back to Arizona. You have to be there or I'm not going to do this."
Oh, wow.
I would say that was a setup.
Yeah, from the word go.
But at the time, you don't want to believe that. You just think, okay, I guess that's what we have to do. So we drive the motorhome.
That was in Arizona, right?
We were in California, and we had to go back to Arizona.
Back to Arizona, right. Okay.
So we went all the way back to Arizona. And we are there for 10 days. And on the 11th day, because the car just got put into the shop 2 days before we left. So we knew there was no possibility of it getting fixed right away. So we were just going to go home. So we were going to the store in the rental car, which they gave us to take back to Oregon with us. And I was at the grocery store getting water for the motorhome, getting the stuff we needed. And we get pulled over by the Mesa. Well, it wasn't Mesa. It was the marshals. Guns.
Federal marshals.
They pull us over with their guns, and they took Tim. They wouldn't tell me anything and I was trying to record them. They made me put my phone down, but they didn't have any badges. They weren't wearing, they were just wearing like military type of normal, like kind of clothing. So there was
they didn't have a warrant. They didn't have any badges. They didn't have actual proper paperwork or identification.
Nothing. Tim asked him for a warrant. When they left with Tim, they went behind Walmart with Tim. And it was a woman marshal that did all this supposed investigation, but she actually got all this information from Ricky's husband. That's the only one that she had as a witness, third party information, if you will. So anyway.
No firsthand knowledge, no secondhand knowledge. It's all third-hand party knowledge, and it's from an ex who has a vendetta against your daughter.
A disgruntled ex. So they pull over behind Walmart with Tim. First of all, they put him in handcuffs. He's a military veteran. He spent 23 years in our military, honorably discharged. And they've got him in these handcuffs so tight, and he has horrible PTSD, and he's got really bad body issues from being at war. So they didn't care, and they didn't. Anyway, so they take him behind Walmart. The lady pulls her recorder out, and she starts asking Tim, where's the grandkids? He says, I don't know, but I'm not talking. I want a lawyer. So she says, okay, get this piece of shit out of here.
Wow.
So they take him clear out to Florence, Arizona. And in that car, they were going 100 miles an hour. Tim's not seatbelted in. The marshal next to him is sitting on a bucket. Because these cars are cars that they just use. They're regular cars.
Right.
You wouldn't even know they were using them for their, decoys. But anyhow, they take him out to this prison. It's a private prison. There's 7 prisons on this site. And it is so incredible.
And what state are you in at this point?
That was in Arizona, but that was Florence, Arizona, where the private prisons are.
Okay. All right.
And so they get him there and they hold him. The first 5 days he's not he can't, nobody is around him. They won't let him, he can call me, but he hasn't spoke to an attorney. He hasn't seen the warrant. He hasn't seen a judge. They're not giving him any utensils to eat with. He has to eat with his hands.
And how long
Uh,
did this go on for?
5 days.
So 5 days. So 5 days. So they arrest him with no warrant, and then put him in a dungeon. Treated him like just a dog, and like the worst criminal for 5 days with no actual due process, no court hearing,
No grand jury indictment.
no grand jury indictment.
Nothing.
Wow.
Other than a marshal that had the power to.
Was he being treated as like labeled as a terrorist, or was he being treated as an enemy combatant, or?
They were treating him as if he was a danger to society. That's what they did.
And he's literally done nothing.
Nothing. He went to the magistrate. The first time he went to the magistrate, they wouldn't bond him out. Well, again, we don't have a grand jury indictment. We don't have a warrant. And they tried to say that he would have a bond hearing, but that went on, I think it was 3 weeks later. And that judge it was so crazy. The attorneys we hire take Tim aside and tell him that he has to take a plea deal or they're going to put him in prison for 10 years. And so he's asking.
That's called extortion.
So he's saying, but wait a minute, I'm here to get bonded out.
So the only people at this point who've actually committed a crime or a felony are the people who are said, if you don't take a plea bargain, we're going to. They just committed a felony. They just committed extortion.
And they don't care.
And they're the only ones that have committed a crime so far.
And it's horrible, Dallas. When he had to go to that courthouse to go to that one hearing, every time he had to go to the courthouse for a hearing, he would go from Florence, which I believe is quite the drive. I think it's so is what they do is they don't tell you have court until that night you go to bed, which is 9:00, lights out. So then they pick you up at 11:00. You don't sleep. You go over to a different area. It's all metal. Tim says it's like a 4x4 cell. It's like a dog kennel. And it's all metal. They won't give you any kind of a blanket or anything, and it's freezing. They have the AC up so high that the men are freezing. And they stay in there until the next morning, and they travel on a bus where by the way, they pat these people down 3 times. Once before they go out of that cell to the next cell, and then when they go on the bus, and then when they get to the jail, and then when they go back around, they have to start it all over. And I don't mean pat downs. This is full blown inhumane. I mean, these men they have they're called box handcuffs, I think.
Yeah. It's where your wrists and stuff are actually clinked in together. Right. They're not regular handcuffs.
Right.
They're actually,
and it's
you got a box.
It's painful. And if my husband's got horrible wrists because he's had surgery on him, regardless. So so basically before he sees that judge, he has to stay awake. I think it's the entirety of the time. By the time he leaves the jail, goes to court, comes back, it's 36 hours. And that's a game.
That's crazy.
It's a game. And during this time, my husband didn't get his heart medication for many, many weeks. He had a previous heart attack. They actually gave him the wrong medication at one time. And if he would have not realized it and stopped from taking it, it could have cost him death. So it is so he's in prison. They put him in prison pre-trial. You're not supposed to be around those that have been sentenced, but you are. There's people in this prison that have been sentenced to the life, and they don't care who they hurt.
Right.
So in the midst of all this crazy behavior, we have 5 different. Well, first we start out, we pay for 2 attorneys, 3 actually, and we're at $90,000. And you know what every one of them tell us before we fire them? We can't do this or we can't do that. We're afraid of the prosecutor. We'll lose our job.
So that proves my point. Is what I teach all the time is the fact that lawyers, they have a very first sworn oath and duty to the state and to the court to protect the state and the court over the client, right? We've been exposing this for quite a few years now. And this just proves my point, is that these lawyers, it doesn't matter if you spend $90,000 on an attorney or not. It doesn't matter if it's a court-appointed attorney. They're always going to do what's in the best interest of the court and the state and their selves. Who cares if you're innocent or not? I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not going to piss off the judge. I don't want to get in trouble for not doing something proper. Even though I have a duty to vigorously represent my client and do what's in the best interest of my client. Oh, wait, but I also have a contradicting oath that I've been mandated to take to uphold and protect the state and the court. So the attorney, even though you spent $90,000 on the attorney, he just clearly proved my point.
But the problem is, so we fire one attorney to get another one we think is going to be better. And that attorney goes to Tim's bond hearing, and she has all this evidence showing to go against the grain of what they state. We could prove different, but they don't use any evidence. And she doesn't even argue. There's no grand jury. There's no warrant. She doesn't argue any of that. She just lets the judge and the prosecutor, I think we're sisters, by the way, and the prosecutor listened to this.
There's a conflict of interest.
Well, we couldn't prove it. They looked alike. But anyways, the prosecutor's from Michigan, I believe, and had been practicing in the state of Arizona for over 10 years without a license. So that's a problem. But so, okay, we go to this hearing to bond him out, and it seems as though this attorney that we hired is working, obviously, with the prosecutor, because they were claiming to him all this endangerment stuff that never even was factual. They were saying things that had happened that never happened and that he was charged with in Oregon. Never happened. So I'm sitting there at an awe, and I'm just blown away with, and then I've got a marshal standing by me while I'm in the courtroom. I'm not allowed to say a word. Tim can't even look at me while he's in that room. And as a matter of fact, he tried to talk to his attorney at one point in one of these hearings, and the marshals would not let him have, the attorney said, "I'd like to speak to my client privately." And the marshal said, "That's not going to happen."
Ooh.
Oh,
massive violation. Oh, that's crazy.
You really feel
the case should be completely thrown out just because of that alone.
Oh, there's so many reasons this case is going to get thrown out. But here's the bigger picture. Tim spends a year in this pretrial courtroom, and there's no evidence. As a matter of fact, there's so many Brady violations in this case, and NAPUA, exculpatory evidence, was withheld, and they did it purposely. The prosecutor got a letter from Tim's attorney writing a letter to the prosecutor asking her to dismiss this case because everything she was doing was not even correct. She was misinterpreting what facts were here, and she didn't present the facts to the judge. And she withheld that exculpatory evidence. All up until Tim went to sentencing because they would not let him out until he took a plea deal. We tried to file everything possible that we could possibly do, and everything was denied. And so here's even a crazier thing. He gets a judge at one point, and so this one judge forces an attorney on Tim. He's trying to go pro se, and he all of a sudden has another attorney. And Tim doesn't want this attorney. So we're putting motions in to get this attorney removed. And he said that attorney comes into court with Tim, and Tim says, I've asked him to be removed. I don't want him as an attorney. The judge says, well, you have to keep him on for a couple more weeks. I want to see if you guys can't work this out.
Oh, that's so insane. Like, okay, fine. He can stay on my case, but as second chair, right? But I'm going to represent myself.
Well, no, he was so corrupt. You couldn't even keep him on.
Didn't even allow him to do that.
No, it was really corrupt. The judge, these were not this was not the federal prosecutor's office attorneys. This is a judge that invited these private attorneys in. I mean, I don't know if he was part of their, maybe he owned some of their business. I'm not sure. I don't want to say that, but anyway, so then we get this little window where we can claim pro se because there's no attorney after that one leaves. So Tim goes back to court again. He's written up the motion to vacate, the motion, an affidavit of truth, all this stuff that should have been dismissing this case because it showed all the evidence. And all of a sudden he gets to the courtroom and this judge, Tim, says a few things and the judge doesn't really say much. And this new attorney comes in and the judge says, this is your new attorney. And he moots all of Tim's documents because he says, now you have an attorney. So nothing got done. Those documents are still in the record, but the public can't see them because they've been mooted by this.
Yeah, but the federal appeals court will see them.
If you can get the appeal court to accept. We have another problem.
Right.
We have written.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that like you just recently called the court clerk for something, right?
Well, that I did too. But prior to that, we asked for an appeal, and the appeal's been in the Court of Appeals in San Francisco since October 26th or 27th, somewhere in there. And I called them the other day, and they still have not accepted or denied the appeal. So we just are sitting here. And he said, well, give me a call back in a couple of weeks. Okay, that's great. Whatever. So in the midst of all this, I'm thinking, okay, I still need a copy of Tim's transcripts from the indictment, and I need the foreman's signature. That's huge. So if you don't have those, you don't have a case. It's void. So I'm thinking, okay, I tried to do this 2 years ago. Myself and somebody else called the prosecutor's office requesting those documents. And I think I took him by surprise because the gentleman says on the phone, what do you mean the transcripts? You know, those exculpatory evidence that you have and that would help the case?
Yeah, right. Yeah, the stuff that
are,
you're mandated to hand over?
We're asking for those. And he says, well, those are third-party contracted out. We don't even have those. We can't get those. I said, what? Excuse me? What do you mean? Well, ma'am, we don't have those. So
they're stonewalling you so bad.
Well, we knew that, and I know they don't even have them because they're not even having grand jury indictments. There's not a possibility, and I'll get to that. But anyways, so I wait 2 years later. So the other day, I think I'm going to call him again, and I'm going to ask him again. Might as well try. So I do, and yeah. You know what they had to say about that? Not a lot of good. So basically,
of course not.
They tell me, well, grand jury indictment transcripts, we don't have those here. And I said, well, are you going to tell me you didn't third-party contract those out again? Because that's what you told me last time. And they said, well, we don't have those. You'll have to call the court. Well, okay, I'll try that again like I did 2 years ago. Now, if the court says you have a grand jury indictment and it's on the record on PACER, by God, the court should have that documentation.
You would think.
No, the court clerk says we don't carry those here. We don't have them. You'll have to call the prosecutor's office, or we just don't have them.
They're just sending you to all. They're just playing ping pong with you.
But that's okay, because they have to answer somewhere. It may not be to me directly, but they will have to answer. Right. So the problem now lies, it's that you can see the malicious prosecution in this all the way, every step.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's such a vile taste in my mouth when I even think about it, let alone talk about it. It makes me want to vomit what they're doing to not only my husband and my family, but to thousands and thousands of Americans. And I know that this is happening in other states, not just Arizona. A friend of mine has her husband imprisoned in Georgia. She can't get his transcripts either. It's a federal prison. So this is happening quite often everywhere. Now, you think about this. If there are 7 prisons, private prisons, on that property in Florence, Arizona, and and they're going to arrest, let's say, about 100 people a day between all the prisons, even if it was more or less, not much less, because I read this statistics on it. It's quite big. It's large. So if you think about how a grand jury indictment happens, every case is different. They can't possibly be having more than 2 grand jury indictments a day. It's not even feasible. I mean, it takes
Right.
a lot of, it's a big deal, depending on your, how many witnesses, what kind of evidence do you have? How many other issues are there that you have to bring in? So if you think about how could they possibly be doing that many arrests and felonies and not one, I mean, several, obviously they say grand jury indictments, but where's the transcripts? They don't have them. So then you ask for your speedy trial. So now we're going to the speedy trial because that's allowed, 70 days. Here's what they say. We don't have time for those.
We don't have time to give you a speedy trial. We are far too busy with other things. We don't need to honor your due process rights and civil procedures. No.
So do you see how the steps that they're taking are the manipulation? It is such a scheme. It's a scheme. If you're not going to these people are going to prison.
I guarantee you, Jamie, that these prisons, these private prisons, are giving these judges massive kickbacks.
You better believe it. Oh, you bet. It's already.
I guarantee it.
Slush funds alone are huge. Puerto Rico, most every judge that retires,
you know what this reminds me of? Oh yeah, I agree with you. You know what this reminds me of? Remember, and I mentioned this in one of my newsletters that I produce about. Remember the judge that got massively slammed with I can't remember how many years he received, but it was the Cash for Kids.
Yes.
Scandal that was back in the late 90s or something like that, early 2000s.
Over by New York or somewhere in there.
Yeah, it was a Cash for Kids program.
Yep.
And the judge was getting kickbacks. He's like millions of dollars.
Same thing.
It's the same bullshit with these private prisons. These private prisons are actively involved in racketeering and RICOs and oh yeah.
All the way.
Here, Judge, here's $50,000 if you just make sure that our beds are full.
Well, if they don't keep them full,
right.
If they don't keep the private prisons to a certain capacity, they shut them down.
Mm-hmm. So
and then
how
you've
do they
got
do that?
Well, then you've got employers, like McDonald's, you've got Victoria's Secret, you've got all kinds of people employing these prisoners for pennies on the dollar for enslaved,
slave labor, yeah.
And it's unreal how us as Americans can sit here and watch this go on. We have the highest rate of imprisonment than any other country. And you wonder why?
Oh, easily.
And you can't imagine that if this is a scheme in which they produce it and they make it happen, no wonder. And then you go back to the marshals. Every time the marshals and the FBI arrest so many people, and for certain types of crimes, I won't mention, they get their pockets full of bonuses. Mm-hmm. And that to me, those incentives are unlawful. That is trafficking. It just is.
It's like trafficking children through CPS. When you got agencies who are making bonus money for adopting a child out, or retaining so many children in a month, the agency will get bonus money. It's like it's disgusting that these federal programs, they need to be eliminated. They need to be eliminated now.
Well, then they let Tim takes a plea deal after being beat up 11 different times inside that prison. And it seems like the more he didn't take a plea deal, the prisoners that were in there for life are the ones beating him up.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes, to taking a plea deal because you don't see another way out. You're not getting out. There's a guy in there that Tim became friends with who was also I'll get into it, but they were enslaved extreme, his whole entire family, 19 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that guy.
And what's the name of this prison?
Same one, Florence, Arizona.
Florence, Arizona.
Right on the border. It's close to Mexico border, and usually they bring in a lot of people that come through the border unlawfully, or if they pick them up here. But it is becoming, and they also take state prisoners to, they call it diesel therapy. They'll diesel therapy people all over different states to harm them and cause more emotional stress, and they take care. But it is so. Man, if people could just understand, and then the other thing is that county, after you're there in that prison for 6 months, they get incentive from the federal government, gives them funding because now those people are citizens of that little town.
Right.
It is so big. Wow. It is huge amounts of money these people are profiting off of, and it's these private and
it's financial modern slavery.
That's all it is. And I go back to, watching Tim take a plea deal for a crime he never committed. And then when he gets out, they put him on probation, 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what are we doing? What? And then you've got probation officers who are getting paid for this scheme, and then their incentives. And then you go, okay, then they want to put you on all these programs that you pay for. You have to pay for them out of your pocket. So now that's another amount of money that they're profiting off of, instead of just the government making money to them. And this is the most horrendous crime. I mean, I talk about murder and stuff, but this is yeah.
Jamie, let's play. I know that you talked about calling the court clerk, right?
Okay.
And they were denying the fact, we don't have those records, right? So you actually recorded them, telling these things, right? So
yeah, I was asking for grand jury indictment transcripts.
Yeah, so let's take a look at that.
And what?
The transcripts from the grand jury indictment and the foreman's signature off of that.
Okay, well, that's not a court proceeding. That's done outside the court.
And what do you
can't get that through us.
Who do we go through? Because I called the prosecuting office and they sent me back to you again.
Okay, well, if it's not a court proceeding, so we can't help you with it. I'm not really sure who you need to go through for that, but it's not us.
Isn't that crazy? We've been doing this for 2 years. They told me they third-party contract those out.
Okay, well, that isn't us. So.
Okay, so I'll give them a call back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So that's just the first one. That's just the first one that you did, right?
That was just a few days ago. 2 years ago when they told me third-party contract those out, that's not even the one I originally did. That was just a few days ago.
We're talking about court records that have a massive legal implication to them, and you're saying we third-party contract that out. Do you think the taxpayers know that shit?
Well, I actually said that to the gentleman on the phone. I said, well, wait a minute. Taxpayers have a right to see the documentations if they choose to. This is not something you can do that with. And I don't know who gave you the right to do so. He says, ma'am, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't think that's even constitutional.
It's not. They can't do it, Dallas. This is
that's just nuts.
They probably don't have anybody calling them and asking them for them.
No, probably not. Let's take a look. Let's listen to this other recording that you have.
Unfortunately, everyone that I've talked to says we don't give it out.
Well, under Rule 6E exceptions, if an indictment was legally issued, I'm entitled to see the docket, the entry, and the foreman's signature. That's all I'm requesting.
Do you want me to put you through to who I talked to?
Yeah, who was that?
Tiana Ross. She's the head paralegal here.
That would be wonderful.
Legal assistant here.
And
Okay,
thank you.
Just 1 moment. You're welcome. I tried.
No, I appreciate it. I've been at it for 2.
Wait, so she's saying that the head paralegal is telling her this, not a lawyer, not the head court clerk, but a paralegal.
Correct.
That is nuts. And okay. Well, the paralegal told us this, so we're going to uphold, violating your constitutional rights and your protected rights and due process, and because the paralegal told us. Yeah. Okay.
I feel your pain.
What was that?
From the prosecutor office.
Yeah.
Here, just a moment.
That's nuts.
She doesn't answer.
It just keeps on ringing?
Yeah, she won't answer. I called back 3 more times. They would not pick up the phone.
Wow. Because they absolutely knew that they were just screwed. And they didn't want to admit it. They didn't want to come to you and correct the issue. They didn't want to give you the actual evidence. That, you know what? That reminds me. I came across these videos on TikTok literally the other day that was talking about this. And this is something that I regularly teach on my TikTok channels, which is scrolling down below here, guys, Malibu, Dallas. If you guys come across this information, this is crucial, because if you're being stonewalled, right? If you're being stonewalled on court clerks, just blatantly refusing you transcripts, blatantly refusing you vital information in your case. Okay, these are actual felonies. Okay, so let's take a look. I came across this guy on TikTok. He's very informative. It's the same stuff that I teach, but he cuts right through the BS and he just lays it out pretty well.
And
I've
spoke to him about this case, and that's another reason he's got a case going as well. But he does a lot of good deep research, and he's very good, I think.
Okay. So I'm going to play a couple of videos for you. Make sure you take some notes on this section, or play back and listen to what he's saying very carefully.
How to force a judge to release court audio. Denied FOIA request. Hiding evidence? They say no audio exists. Lies. Here's how to force them to release it. Step 1. File a public records request for the audio. Step 2. If denied, file a motion to compel production of court audio. Step 3. Cite Brady v. Maryland, 1963. The right to exculpatory evidence. Step 4. If they claim it's lost, file a motion for sanctions. 18 U.S.C. with 1519. No audio, they're hiding something.
Joke. They're constantly telling you that they're hiding something, or they've lost something. Oh, we can't find it. It's not available yet. All of these excuses, they are absolutely stonewalling you and trying to keep you from actual evidence in your case.
File a DOJ complaint under 18 U.S.C. 1519 for court record fraud. Objective: force the Department of Justice to investigate the tampered transcript and obstruction of justice. Legal basis: 18 U.S.C. paragraph 1519, evidence destruction. Knowingly altering a court record to obstruct a case is a federal crime. 42 U.S.C. paragraph 1983, civil rights violation. Tampering with records to obstruct justice violates your constitutional rights. 42 U.S.C. paragraph 1985, conspiracy to deprive rights. If multiple officials colluded to alter records, this applies. How to file the DOJ complaint. 1. Write a formal complaint to the DOJ Civil Rights Division. Subject: urgent DOJ complaint, court record tampering and due process violation. Include case details, dates, and specific transcript errors.
He just cut right through the BS and told you exactly what it is. It's pretty much what my videos do. But this, I can't remember his name. What was his name? Let me bring that back up. I'm going to pause this.
How to force a judge to release court audio. Denied FOIA request. Hiding evidence? They say no audio exists live. Here's how.
Defend Your Rights Now on TikTok. That's where I got that from. He's actually, you guys might want to go follow him. He's pretty good.
But in anybody that has a grand jury indictment, I would suggest every single one of you go get your transcripts if you can. And the foreman's signature has to be involved. And when you get those, if you don't get those, I should say, that is game over. That is the beginning of the end. And I say that because there's no other argument. The rest falls. This is you guys got to understand. You guys have got to stop being passive in these cases. You got to stop operating on the defensive. The only way that you're going to get anywhere in your case, criminal, civil, CPS, traffic court, it doesn't matter. You've literally have got to start being loud. You got to get off the sidelines and start being loud. And you got to make sure that you guys are doing your research on what your rights are. Jamie, they've been fighting this for 2 years now. 2.5 years. And prior to this,
years.
I had my own case years ago, federally. So it's very clear to me how deep this goes. It's not. Listen, the other thing I can't give legal advice. God forbid if I did, being as I've already been through all this enough times. But that being said, I suggest every single person that has been harmed by any of these entities, I don't care if it's traffic, family court, CPS, I don't care who it is, federal, state, sue them.
Mm-hmm.
Start your lawsuit and start that first. My thought is hit them in the pocketbook.
See, they're denying you your right to a speedy trial. They're denying you your right to actual evidence in the case, which is a Brady violation.
Yep.
That alone should have the implications of your case being dismissed automatically. But when you're being denied your civil rights, I don't know why people are not just look. If you take a small percentage of the cases, federal criminal cases, state cases, CPS cases, whatever kind of case it is, and you are automatically taking that to trial court, stop taking plea agreements and go to trial court. If a small percentage, say 10%, 10% of all these cases would just go straight to trial court, and maybe these people were demanding a speedy trial, the entire system would crumble.
Absolutely.
Because they cannot hold that much. They wouldn't be able to sustain it. The entire legal system would crumble.
That's why they deny the speedy trial.
Right.
And
because they know.
You think about that. If and I said this to the federal judge I had, and he looked at me like he was just so blown away that we would even think that way. He knows this. But I said, it is not justice. If your courts are winning 98%, that's not justice. You're looking for convictions, period. And he said, well, I've never thought of that. That's a very good thought. Oh.
Really? Welcome to reality. The only reason why you're not looking at it that way is because you're sitting in that little fancy chair you have with the fucking black robe.
With that gavel.
And you're saying, hey, I'm King Almighty. I don't, what I say rules. Oh, wait, I'm getting big fat paychecks.
That's
so
right.
my sight, my ability to see the wide picture is being clouded because of my paycheck.
Well, the other thing is, you say, well, if you're depending on, and 98% of the, and I know that seems like a huge amount, but it is, because that's how corrupt it is. 98% of these cases have depended on a prosecutor with threat, duress, and coercion to collude these cases and make someone take a plea deal. Because if you take this to trial, then they're going to double your sentence, and every trial is fixed. I'm telling you right now, I know factually that they're fixed. These federal courthouses fix it so that the judges, and my judge said it in my case, after I won my case, he said, "That concerns me. I gave the jury instructions." That's because it's treason.
You're a judge and you're giving the jury instructions to look at the case one way or the other. That's obstruction of justice.
It is.
That's also
bias.
a violation of your oath of office.
It's a conflict of interest.
Felony, right? So,
but you think about all these little details, and then, but the bottom line is, it is the biggest Ponzi. I don't know that I want to call it a Ponzi scheme. It's
RICO. It's a RICO action.
It is human trafficking at its highest. They talk about all these human trafficking issues around the country. Go save the children, which we need to. Go save these people in this country. Go do this. Why don't you save our own people who you yourself are helping eliminate by putting them in prison to profit? That's all this is. And it is, people are dying. They're being physically harmed. Their health is not well. Their mental state. People that come out of these prisons don't come out the same way as they go in.
We lost Jamie. I don't know what happened with her. Not quite sure what happened with Jamie, but I'll tell you what. Speaking from somebody who's actually experienced going into prison and coming out of prison, I can testify to that, because the fact that I'm where I'm at today, I have struggled immense amounts of emotional distress and PTSD. And being someone from inside of the foster care system, I was a victim of child trafficking, right? So I understand all of these issues. And when you're a victim of this type of system, you become a product of the system. And most people are going to end up on the wrong side of the law a lot more often than they're not, right? I worked very hard on learning my rights. I worked very hard on learning the law. And I vowed to myself that I would never allow another system to violate my rights without me fully understanding what was going on and to where I could fight back, right? So the fact that I'm here doing these podcasts, doing these TikTok videos, doing consultations and writing books and becoming a published author and all this other stuff, I am blessed. I am truly blessed to have Jamie in my life. I'm truly blessed to have other people in my life that have kept me grounded, because I've had, a lot of success in helping thousands and thousands and thousands of parents all over this country get their cases closed from child CPS cases. I personally have helped Jamie work on her case for the last 2 years, and it is exhausting because you are constantly battling a massive, massive corrupt dragon, right? You got such a mass, and the only way to take down the corruption is to keep on exposing it, to keep on demanding justice, and to expose the procedures and follow the money, right? When you got the Department of Justice flat out admitting that administrative law judges are unconstitutional, we're about to see some serious shit happen in 2025. I'm telling you, the system is going to change pretty drastically. Do you not agree with me, Jamie? Oh, I can't hear you, Jamie. I don't know what's going on with Jamie's feed, but yeah, we can't hear her. But I don't know what's going on. All right. I don't know what's going on with Jamie's feed, but that's basically her story. You guys, if you're not following her on TikTok, if you want to email her, right? Go to this email. Send her an email. If you have similar cases, similar questions, or if you have a way to help her in this case, send her an email. I mean, I'm sure she's going to accept all the help that she can possibly get. If you are looking at following me on TikTok, follow me on TikTok down below. Malibu Dallas is TikTok and Instagram. If you are looking at doing a consultation with me, Stan Store Malibu Dallas right here. That'll take you right to my website where you can book a consultation. You can order my books, and you can get a lot of other highly valuable educational materials there as well. Other than that, you guys, it's been a pleasure. When we are exposing corruption, it's a very dangerous thing. Retaliation is a reality. But you got to understand that just because they retaliate against you doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It means that you're actually doing something correct. When you piss off a judge, you're not doing anything wrong. It means you're doing something correct. Don't ever stop. Don't ever stop. Get loud. Get proud. Because the more people we have exposing this stuff with us, the better. You know, one ant rising up, it's just one ant rising up. When you got 1 million ants rising up, that's an army that they cannot ignore, and that they will be shitting their pants when that army starts coming after them. And that's exactly what we're doing. 2025 and 2026 is going to be I think two of the biggest years we're going to see in the legal system completely turning around. And I'm proud to be a part of it. So, you guys, with that being said, thank you for being here at the show. Thank you, Jamie, for being here. I absolutely value your friendship. It breaks my heart to see that you have been fighting this case for so long. And it breaks my heart that Tim has had to experience the things that he has experienced. He is a good man. You have a good husband. Your daughter is an amazing woman. And I pray that these cases come to an end very, very soon. And we all see justice one way or the other. So I love you guys. Have a good day. See you on the next show.